you look at Iowa athletics, and a lot of focus goes into the metro areas and in Des Moines and the Iowa City Cedar Rapids. Basketball, as far as the players go, the Mississippi Athletic Conference has had some of the best players the last 4 or 5 years go through. We see 2 of them playing in the Big Ten, and then you've got North Scott's got a couple Division I players as well, and it's a great league to test your mettle in. So I actually, as a former coach, that was always fun playing against programs like that. I know Seamus Buddy's a formidable challenge from an X's and O's standpoint. He doesn't just have great athletes there at North Scott.
Well, they run a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, and then you have Pleasant Valley, who plays a very distinct, specific style. The style of basketball, and it's always fun for us to call games in the conference. So,
yes, sir.
Coach John Wyndham, really appreciate your time. Good luck this season. We're going to take a 2-minute break. This is the Winter Sports Kickoff here at Discover Muscatine.
So where are you from originally?
Here. And welcome back to the Winter Sports Kickoff here. Joel Krausar with Discover Muscatine. Remember, if you're tuning in on YouTube or your Facebook feed, remember you can catch this live on Muscatine Power and Water cable as well. So check out whether it's on fiber or the legacy systems. You can watch all of the Discover Muscatine coverage on Muscatine Power and Water. I'm joined by the whole staff. Save for Scott. You guys always let Scott off the hook, which you're good for that. But Susan Orvis, our girls basketball coach, the head basketball coach here at Muscatine. I'll let you introduce your assistants as well, because being a former assistant, I know how important those are to the program as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And to my right is Rachel Hansen, our head JV coach, and down the way here is Neftali Lopez. He runs our freshman 9-10 group, and there are 3 that really aren't here. Scott Morrell, our varsity assistant, is typically with us, and then we also have Mary Nitzel, who is Rachel's assistant, a former player of ours in our system, and then Emily Clemens-Wieskamp is back. in town, and then we've added her as a volunteer, and she's been a good add for us. But yeah, I feel very fortunate about our staff.
It's always good to get a former Summit League Player of the Year back in town to help your staff out. So that's a huge addition. Well, let's talk about your girls program. One thing, Coach, we talked a little bit with Coach Wyndham earlier about he's in the second year of trying to establish that culture, establish what they do as a program. You've had the fortunate circumstances to have done that. You had good consistency and continuity with your assistant coaches, and you've built that culture. Now that's going to come into a factor this year when your leading scorer, Alicia Garcia, we know she's going to miss this season after an out-of-season injury. So how important is that culture that you guys have created as a staff to this season moving forward?
Yeah, I always feel like we have a head start now, having been in those developmental years. At least the expectations are set, how we run the room is set, our level and tempo is set, and really I think the strength of our group, staff and team, is the chemistry. And obviously those kids rallied around Alicia when she got hurt, but then also there is an element of, hey, we've got to pick up the slack here, and we've got to pull together and figure this out. And we've really had a good opportunity to get a head start on that since we had the information in the summer. Alicia could get a head start on her rehab, but they kind of know, instead of having an Alicia-sized hole in January when kids get hurt in the middle of the season, we've already started to figure out how we can fill in the gaps. We as a staff have to make some adjustments, and we're just going to put those pieces together. But we're anxious to see them settle in. May take a little time, but so far so good. We really love their chemistry, their energy, and we play Tuesday, so we're kind of excited to see where we are.
And Neftali, I'll come down to you as the head freshman coach. We talk about, Coach just talked about, setting up the room and setting up expectations. Your job as the freshman coach is a huge part of that. What are some things that you do with those maybe sometimes first-year players or first-year players at the high school level to get them set on the path that you guys expect them to be on?
Right. The main focus is, building the intensity. Try to, as a ninth grader, just to have them understand what it's like to play in high school now, making that transition, and just having that cross level of understanding what the plays are going to be when you move on, and what the expectations are really when you make that next step to the next level as a sophomore or junior.
And then Rachel, as you kind of get that next level, it's got to be nice to have a decent relationship with your fellow staff members as you kind of can get them in that middle portion of their career.
Yeah, Nefty breaks them in. So I don't have a whole lot of work to do. They just have to get through him first.
Yeah, for
sure.
And
it's especially nice with the new facilities over at the Van Heck Center that we can be together on the same court. We can blend. It's critical when we're trying to just develop better tempo and game situations that kids are going to see when they get on the floor, for us to be together and to go against one another in practice every day makes both of us a whole lot better.
And that facility is really a benefit to basketball programs. I remember being a terrible basketball player at Muscatine High School. You were up in one gym, the other teams are in the other gym, and the varsity team's on the main gym. There's no communication between the two, and now you can actually have a really well-organized practice, a really well-organized system. So that organization is really a security blanket for your athletes, and you also have great leaders in your program. Zoe Long, one of your leaders entering into this season. Who are some other players that you look to lean on as the season goes forward here, Coach?
Yeah, we've got two seniors, Riley Blake and Emily Webking, and another small class, but their leadership skills, and they've been in our program 4 years. We're starting to see them at the level of leadership and that we would like to see. We do have that big junior class, which Alicia was a part of, but Zoe Long's played a lot of minutes. You look at Maddie Peterson and Avery Eagle, we look for them to really step in and fill some of that interior gap with Alicia being out. Emma Zillig's come along, and then we also have Olivia Harmon and Erica Ramser who have come up through our system. They're ready for the next step. And we're anxious to see our upperclassmen, and then we're pretty thrilled about there's 6 or 7 sophomores too in those two classes that bring a lot of juice and energy to practice to the level where we might have a little more depth than what we've had, but there's a lot of people getting adjusted right now and settling in, but we're pretty excited about what we have.
When you mentioned senior Emily Webking, last year I remember just doing the games on the radio and on Discover Muscatine, the energy. She's a real high energy player. She does a lot of things on the defensive end that turn into really positive offensive opportunities, and those are the kind of players that I know as a coach you just have to love to see. And you have several of them on your team.
Well, yeah, and I Riley Moss slipped my mind. I have no idea how that happened because I look at Emily Webking and Riley Moss, and they are kind of, I like how all of our kids compete. I think they all play hard, but boy, they are two of our go-getters and competitors, and we really need a playmate or a just a toughness play. They tend to be the ones that start that for us. So yeah, Emily will lead that, and certainly Riley Moss has a lot to handle up there, and we're excited about what they both bring, leading our toughness and some of that competitiveness.
Well, now toughness is something that is visible in your teams. Watching them play, I've watched you guys play for several years now. It goes all the way back to the teams with Emily Clemens and those groups. That's a hard thing to coach. Are you fortunate that you're finding players that have that streak and that ability in them, or is there something that you've been able to cultivate throughout the years?
Well, I think that's something we talk about as a staff as they come up through. I mean, there's always the blocking pads in practice, and you can cultivate it to an extent. Some of that is they're born with it or they aren't, but at the same time, we do try to develop that. There's a level of basketball it's a contact sport. And we've got to teach it that way, and we've got to encourage it to be played that way. Otherwise, we're going to be reacting instead of acting a lot. So we encourage that a lot. We bring, like Emily having been in practice, we bring some guys into practice that are certified to help us, and they just know that contact is a part of what we do. So to as much as we can influence that, we try to.
Yeah, that's it's interesting to hear you say that, because you see college teams bring those blocking pads. I remember watching Jamie Sale at Morningside College, where I went to school, on some of his national championship teams. They had other football players in there with the pads and working guys over, working girls over, and so it's interesting to hear you say that's trickled its way down into the high school ranks as well.
Yeah, and I think part of it for us is the way we structure our practices. Everything's competitive, everything's got score, everything's got some kind of consequence, so that there is something on the line every time. So you try to create that pressure and try to create those competitive situations pretty much throughout our entire practice setting.
So Neftali, as you instill those competitive situations in your freshman practice, do you have some deer in headlight moments with some of the younger players?
We try to do the best to teach them what is like, to start building that toughness with those basketball drills, and like you said earlier, having the CVH and being able to join in with the JV and graders see what it's like to take maybe that next step, and how these girls have grown up a little bit more, and how they get a little bit tougher maybe than you, and try to have those conversations of what can you do now so that doesn't happen next time. If you got the ball stripped from you, how are you going to be able to not let that happen? How are you going to be tougher to not let that happen next time?
And Rachel, we see it at the JV sophomore level. I think sometimes there's a misconception that JV or sophomore is not as competitive, and you coach those girls hard. You're going hard in the games. You're deploying a lot of strategy into that. You're preparing them for the next level. It seems like you take a lot of pride in that as the coach at that level.
Yeah, and we've got, Susan mentioned those 6 or 7 sophomores. We have that big sophomore bunch that, with Nefty last year, they saw that competitive edge, and we have a 3-series defensive kind of set up a series of competitive drills that they go toe-to-toe and they go hard, to the point that I think we were blowing the whistle more often than not to get them to stop. And they really they've owned that now. And this year, seeing those freshmen move up into this sophomore role, they've really owned that, and they bring that intensity to the gym. And I'm excited to see what they'll do. But yeah, we take a lot of pride in at whatever level a kid comes in, we want them to be successful, and we want to put them in a position where they're going to have an enjoyable season, but a successful one. And at the JV level especially, just teaching the fundamental skills that we know are going on in every gym. It's happening at the varsity gym, it's happening in the freshman gym. It's the same skill progression, and our goal is to get a kid to their highest potential in that in our program.
You mentioned you play Tuesday. The girls' season always kicks off before that Thanksgiving holiday. So who do you guys face on Tuesday then?
We go up to see Cedar Rapids Prairie on the road. It'll be a JV varsity tip on Tuesday night.
How is Prairie this year?
Prairie they actually were pretty loaded last year. They had 3 D1 guards on their roster and some nice role players. They've graduated one of those guards and a few of those role players, but they returned 2 D1 guards that are playmakers. And then we're waiting to see kind of how they're going to fill in those gaps, but with 2 playmakers like that on the floor, they'll make it hard for us.
Well, it's a good challenge to get that going there early on in the year. Again, coaches, thank you guys so much. I know Brian Musell and I are looking forward to calling several of your games this year. We're going to have those on the Discover Muscatine so people can see them live and live stream, and they'll be able to watch them at home if they can't make it out to the gym. So again, thank you guys so much for coming.
Great, thank you.
Coach Susan Orvis, the head girls basketball coach. Again, thank you to your assistants, Neftali Lopez and Rachel. It's Hansen, right?
Yep.
For some reason, we'll keep wanting to say Jansen because I'm an idiot sometimes. So again,
I'll
thank
answer
you
both.
guys so much for joining, and we're going to take a quick little break. We're going to take about a 3-minute break here. This is the Winter Sports Kickoff on Discover Muscatine. And welcome back to the Winter Sports Kickoff on Discover Muscatine at discovermuscatine.com. And you can also remember you can see these broadcasts on MP&W cable. So again, now I'm joined by Joe Kane, the head wrestling coach here at Muscatine High School, year 4. It's hard to believe it's been 4 years already, Coach.
Time flies.
It seems like you just got here.
Yeah.
And you know, one thing that I was talking with Coach Wyndham earlier about how he's building culture, growing his program. That's something that you've really been able to do in your 4 years here. You were mentioning you got some of your bigger numbers in a while in that wrestling room here this beginning of the season.
Yeah. The last few years we've been around 35, 36, and this year we're topping 40. We got like 41, 42 guys in the room, which brings a lot of energy, a lot of workout partners, and yeah, getting a lot of kids wrestling and building the sport, building excitement about the sport.
You know, and this summer you had a lot of participation with your athletes this summer. Went to a few camps. I remember seeing, I think you guys went to Loris, did some wrestling up there. You know, Division III national champs. That's not a bad room to be in. What have you seen from your guys who are putting some of that extra work in?
Well, I've had 3 off seasons, and in each year we've seen more kids doing more. There's more kids getting to open mats. There's more kids getting to tournaments, clinics, and camps, and it shows. And we made it to a few team camps. We went to the Grandview University camp, the Loris camp, and the Luther camp. All of them are outstanding, and it pays off. Those guys that put in their work in the summer are the ones that you see wrestling in Des Moines in February.
It's just a remarkable tradition that our state has in this sport, and Muscatine is has a strong participation in that tradition. I remember going to college and having friends who weren't from Iowa. They didn't know what wrestling was, and then they went to their first high school wrestling meet and they just saw how intense it can be. You have some athletes coming back in Tim Nimley, who was a state qualifier last year. Who are some other of the top guys that you see coming back, and we're looking to have good seasons this season?
Yeah, wrestling in the state of Iowa is a real sense of pride, and there's definitely a lot of tradition. There's a lot of tough competition out of there, and we are in the mix, and it starts with Tim. He's our returning state qualifier. He's going to be back at 170 again this year, and we're looking for him to take another step forward to be a state placer or even a state champ. I also have 4 seniors that are going to be really tough. Carson Harder, Cedric Castillo, Anthony Mathias, and Quentin Mitta. We expect them all to win a lot of matches and make a run for the state tournament. I have another junior along with Tim, Togadessa, and he's going to be our heavyweight, and we're looking for him to get down to Des Moines as well. And then to round it out as far as returning varsity experience, I have a couple sophomores that wrestled varsity as freshmen, Jet Fridley and Mason Crabtree. And so we're bringing back some experience, we're bringing back some leadership, and we're also looking for some new guys to step in.
So when's your first meet of the season?
We go Thursday after Thanksgiving at North Scott.
So we talk about weight management a lot in your sport, and that's something that's, I was just listening to actually a podcast with Mark Ironside, and he was talking about that was the hardest thing to learn as a wrestler. What are some things that you guys as a coaching staff, Scott Mock, one of your assistants, and then who are some of your other assistants that you have, and how do you help guide these guys through that weight management journey?
I have 4 assistants, Scott Mock, as you mentioned, Ryan Haggerty, Bryce Leitner, and Rob Aubrey. All of them are great guys, great additions to the coaching staff. As far as weight management, weight cutting, getting to your competitive weight, we provide a lot of information on how to do it the right way so that you're performing at your best. It's not about just tipping the scale at a certain weight, it's about performing at your best. Last night, we brought in some nutritionists. They're actually the nutritionists for the Iowa Hawkeye wrestling team, so they know what they're talking about. And they gave us an hour of their time and some great information. And they're coming back in a couple weeks to work with us again. And so, we reach out to experts in the field of nutrition, and that helps us in our game to perform at our best. But it also teaches these kids health and nutrition for life.
Yeah, that's such an important part of your sport in particular is it's one thing to be a weight, it's one thing to be able to function at the weight. You mentioned that competitive weight, and it's such an important thing. How many weight classes are there now in Iowa? I know a couple years ago they were thinking about retooling it. It's 14. It's 14.
Yep,
now?
And it's been 14 for a while,
okay.
A few years.
So you got heavyweight, which is 275.
285.
285 max. And then 215.
220.
220. Okay, so they have bumped them all up since I guess last time I looked at that.
Yep.
And then so as you go down, do you feel like you have enough depth at each weight class, or are you always trying to develop that?
On paper, we can fill every weight. The 7, 8, or 9 guys that I mentioned earlier are definitely all gonna find a spot in our varsity lineup. I have a couple other real tough guys that are you're going to be hearing about here soon, and our log jams in the middle weights. We're sorting some things out with wrestle-offs. We're really solid at the upper weights, which has been characteristic of our team for the last few years, with guys like Brennan Broders, Dalton Sell, Shane Mathias, and Nolan Bell. And the light weights are the question mark. We have a couple freshmen, a couple new guys that we could fill in there, and the light weights are kind of the question.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to see. I know that a lot of people in town know me as a football guy, but wrestling is one of my favorite sports. I enjoy it. Like Wade McLeod, the former Muskie coach, is a classmate of mine, and watching him wrestle was always a good time. And I just took my kids to the Iowa wrestling meet this past weekend. So we're teaching them young here, and we're looking forward to seeing what the Muskie season is going to do. And one home meet this year, December 12th, here in Muscatine. So come out and make sure you see the Muskies on the Thursday, December 12th. It's your chance to see them at home. And Coach Joe Kane, really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
It's been the Winter Sports Kickoff here on Discover Muscatine. We're going to take about a 3-minute break, and we'll be right back with some more coaches and some more interviews. Winter Sports Kickoff. Joel Krausar here with Discover Muscatine. I'm joined by one of the newer coaches to Muscatine High School, Judd Anderson. Judd, when was that first year again?
It was in the previous century. It was in the 1900s. We can leave it there.
Legendary swimming coach here in Muscatine. I know you don't like that word, but
Yeah,
for those of us who grew up here and witnessed your programs, you've had a lot of success here. And we kind of talked about it a little bit here off the air. A lot of it has to do with a lot of the volunteers in the community with the youth sports and the youth swimming program. But let's talk a little bit about your high school charges. We're in the boys season. You came off of a decent girls season, and now we're into the boys swimming season this winter. How's it doing? It's your first week of practice.
Well, we got a weekend. We get a head start over basketball and wrestling. I don't know why the state does that, but I think they're trying to now complicate things a little bit. Next year, we heard that volleyball, we're going to go another week longer next year for girls. So the moment overlaps. So maybe that'll be a good thing. We'll get the boys and girls in the pool together. We'll tell them that. Maybe that'll be an attraction for the boys. But
looking at the sport, it's we're fortunate in our community to have an investment in swimming. That you got new bleachers in the pool this year. We've got some new starting blocks now at the pool. Continued investment in the Carver Swim Center. And that has to make you feel good as a coach, knowing that the community is behind your sport.
Oh yes, yeah. My one major project at the moment is to work on the overhead lighting, which goes back to the original pool built in the mid 1970s. I try to point out to Jeff Miller, that they look like candles burning up there. They're so dim compared to that new LED lighting that they've got out there. But it's we're very pleased with what we have been able to, what they've provided for us actually.
Who are some of the athletes this winter that we can kind of keep our eye on, and as your swimming team takes to the pool?
Well, part of our program includes, because Wilton doesn't swim at the high school level, and they were great students, great kids. They worked hard. A couple of them, Will Zillig and Carson Orr, swam in the state meet for us last year. Unfortunately, they graduated, so we got to find replacements for 10 guys. And we're able to find 2 freshmen to come out this year. So it's going to be an interesting year.
Yeah, and it is something you mentioned a little bit, multiple sport athletes. Swimming is a great sport to be a participant in and to do as far as this broad spectrum of athletics. So it is a great sport.
One of our major benefits is from DJ Hawkins and the strength and conditioning program that he runs in the school for all athletes. And it's not football lifting; it's athletics, and he tailors the programs to meet the athletics that the kid participates in. So that's a tremendous source of benefit for any program, including ours.
And you've been around athletics for a long time, having been a competitive athlete yourself, and you had kids, multiple sport athletes in your family. Your daughters and your son played lots of sports growing up. You've seen it. You see the benefits of it, and you're starting to see the sports medicine world come out and say, hey, listen, folks, you need to be multiple sport athletes. Specialization can be a damage, and swimming is one of those sports that really works the entire body and is such a great thing. But more importantly, it's a pretty darn awesome sport.
It is a conditioning sport. So we kind of complement the track and the cross country types of programs that are involved in similar types of things. I facetiously like to say sometimes we don't play swimming.
Right.
I think our guys would like to play, and maybe more often they do play, but they work pretty hard, and it's a full body conditioning type of program.
Yeah, I have an 8-year-old who's in the youth program, and they were doing ladders last Friday, and I was watching that, or 2 Fridays ago, and I was like, I don't know that I could have done that when I was 8. So it's impressive watching these coaches put them through the pace. It's impressive watching you put your athletes through the paces. I've been fortunate to kind of sneak in at the end of some practices, but as my son's butted up. You know, what has been the driving factor that's just kept you doing it for so many years?
Oh, well, I don't know. I you know, kind of again, somewhat facetiously said, you know, the other alternative I have, I don't have any other talents. I don't have any other hobbies. And so the alternative to me is eat and watch TV. And I eat enough as it is, as it shows. But watching too much TV is not going to be good for me either. So.
Well, we're very fortunate to have you here in Muscatine, and we're looking forward to seeing what your boys are going to do in the pool this winter. And again, thanks so much for taking some time to hang out with us. We appreciate it. Judd Anderson, the head swimming coach here in Muscatine. Big thank you to Judd. This is the Winter Sports Kickoff on Discover Muscatine. We're going to take a 2-minute break. We'll be back on discovermuscatine.com. Thank you, sir.
In the last 2 years, we have 3 Muskies that are bowling for college. Reagan Carey, she's bowling up at Clark, and Jalen Klein and Gabby Evans are both bowling down at William Penn.
Oh, wow.
So, and then we have Devin Lorette, who went to Kansas. And
yeah, he's at Kansas State.
Yeah.
He's bowling on their club team.
Yep,
It's pretty
yep.
remarkable. So it's an exciting development. Again, one of the more successful programs in our high school.
It has been very
and
successful.
It's been fun to watch the bowling team as you guys have continued to build that program. So, Coach, thanks again. Thanks so much for stopping over. I know we're short on time. You got to get to your next station here. So thank you so much for stopping over. Muskie Bowling, check it out. You can go to discovermuscatine.com and see their schedule, and head on down to the lanes. Check out these fine athletes here in our high school. We're going to take another quick break. I'll be back. It's Joel Krausar with the Winter Sports Kickoff on discovermuscatine.com. Welcome back to the Winter Sports Kickoff on Discover Muscatine. Joel Krausar. And I'm joined by the head dance team coach, Allie Fahler. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
And being on now. You know, we talked a little bit at the Fall Sports Kickoff. You were getting into that season. This part of the year is a little bit different for you. I'm not sure there's anyone who has as crazy of a schedule as the dance team during the winter months.
It's a lot. So we're 2 weeks out from state. So we're practicing still 3 days a week and soon to be 5 days a week. And then we start basketball season 2 days before we leave for state. And Then basketball's twice a week, and it's a lot.
And you talked about state. How many different dances do you need to prepare for that competition?
So we usually do 2 dances, and this year we decided to do a pom, which is the normal dance team style you would be used to, and then a hip hop, because the girls really decided that they wanted to have fun, and that's the best way for them to go and have some fun and not have to worry quite as much.
You know, and I actually watch the state thing on Iowa Public
Yeah.
Television every year. It's amazing watching what I grew up
Yeah.
kind of doing show choir and some of that
Okay.
things, so I had some background in that, and I have a daughter who dances. It is just remarkable the level
Yeah.
of competition that there is, and you're not just competing against the other schools. There's standards, and you're trying to get those ratings. And so, how are you picking the show? How are you figuring?
In the hotel room before. It's all of the times that they spend together as a team, and that's the best part for me too as a coach.
I remember teaching high school baseball team how to play euchre on a bus
Yes.
trip. I mean, it's learning card games, and it's a little bit different now. They've got
Yeah,
phones
I was
and
gonna
all
say I
that
don't think I
stuff.
could hold their attention
Yeah,
for that
probably
long.
not. So that brings us kind of to my next question: music. Music is always an interesting thing. It's a
Yes.
huge part of what you guys do. Who gets
Yes.
to pick the music? Is that your call, or do you kind of have to get some consensus from the team?
So we go back. So for our state routines, I pick it. And then for football and basketball, the girls get to pick the music. And it's always interesting because they always send me a few songs that they know I'm going to turn down. They just know it, but they slip them in there anyway. They want to see if they could get away with it. But they have some freedom, but they know their limits pretty well.
It's just you guys do so much, for the teams, and you fill kind of the gaps at sporting events. But it's fun to watch you guys do your actual
Thank you.
competitive style things, because that's truly the core of what you guys do. There's real skill that you're trying to build with these athletes.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that we call them athletes, because
Thank you.
being around dance as long as I have been, it's remarkable what you guys do, and having a father be a sports medicine professional, lots of injury opportunities in your sport as well.
Yeah, we have about probably 1 or 2 girls at least every practice that have something. And, some coaches might look at it and say, those girls need to tough it out. They need to, but, high school sports are such a small part of their life that it's
A metatarsal
fragile.
can only handle so much.
Exactly.
I mean, absolutely.
Exactly.
Those bones in your feet are not big.
Right. I would rather have you sitting out a few dance team practices than on crutches when you're 30.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. Well, gosh, to be 30 again. Allie Thaler, again, our dance coach. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. We'll
Thank you.
hopefully have some opportunities to get you on the camera during our basketball coverage this year, because you guys are a huge part of the game time experience here at the Muscatine Gym. So again, thanks so much, Allie. Appreciate it. It's Winter Sports Kickoff. Joel Krausar at Discover Muscatine. We're going to take another quick break, and we'll be back with some more action.
I think it'll be a nice, smooth season, and everything will be pretty laid back and pretty easy for them.
How many cheerleaders do you have this winter season?
We have 9 cheerleaders. We have 8 females and 1 male.
And then what sports do you guys all operate during?
So for this year, all we are cheering for winter is basketball. So we'll cheer for the girls basketball team for home games and also for the boys basketball team.
So you travel to a lot of games as well. What are some things how did you get into cheerleading, and what drew you to the coaching of the sport?
Well, honestly, when the position came available for applying, I was not interested. That sounded like way too much work for what I wanted to do, but I don't regret it at all. I love what I'm doing. I love working with all of these kids almost every day. I wouldn't be a normal day if my phone wasn't getting blown up by them for any questions or just asking me random things or telling me about their day.
I'm going to ask you a hard question here.
Great.
One that I've always been curious about as an athlete and a coach myself. How do you guys come up with the cheers? Is that like just something that gets passed down from generation to generation, or is somebody out there like, ooh, this would be great, and writing it down?
Majority of them have been passed down. We steal them from YouTube videos, or if we see another team that does a really cute one.
You're not stealing them. You're just being influenced.
Yes, yeah, we don't steal them. We like what they do, so we're doing it for us too.
Absolutely. Imitation is the greatest form of
Yes.
flattery, right? I'll tell you what, is there any word that your group can spell better than aggressive? I feel like that is one word. I've never misspelled the word aggressive in my life because of being so close to the cheerleaders in high school as football players.
They also spell victory. That is one of their favorite words to spell.
And I'm making jokes. I'm not.
I know.
I'm not
I know.
poo-pooing what you guys do. It's a tremendous thing, and there has to be a certain commitment to just energy. I mean, that's got to be something you have to cultivate and coach.
Yeah.
How are you? Do you find that as an intrinsic quality in your girls and the guys on your squad, or is that something that there's some days you have to be like, listen, guys, I know you do not want to do this, but we got to bring it tonight.
Most of them, they really love what they do. So when they're at the games, they really enjoy cheering. So I don't have to really encourage them to, get it together. Most of them are already doing that. It's mainly at practices where they start to get bored when we go over a cheer 100 times or do 50 jumps in a row. We don't actually do that many, but then I have to encourage them, like, guys, we're doing this to make you the best cheerleader that you can be. But other than that, they're pretty motivated themselves. They love what they do.
When you have athletes who are involved with gymnastics, they do some of the tumbling aspects. Do you guys do any competition?
We did a competition. We went to the state championship at the beginning of November.
And how'd that go?
It went really good. They only had a month and a half of practices. So for everything that we threw at them in such a short amount of time, they did really well, and I was very proud of them. Most teams practice for probably like April or May up until November for their competition team, and we only had about 10 weeks. So they did really good for the amount of time and all the difficult stuff that we were asking them to do.
That's great. Your teams do so much on Tuesdays and Fridays and every day in between. It's Molly LaRue, the varsity cheerleading coach here at Muscatine High School. Thanks so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you.
So we're going to take another quick break. Joel Krausar with the Winter Sports Kickoff here at our last guest of the day, which has been a great day
Save the
here.
best for last.
Absolutely. Megan Kaufman-Randall, president of our Mighty Muskie Booster Club, is here with us. And this is an event that you're organization does a lot to help keep going. Walking tacos were the bill of
Absolutely.
fare tonight. When was the first time you had a walking taco?
Oh gosh, I was a kid. I don't know. It's a long time ago.
For me, it was, I don't want to say, it was Burlington, Iowa. That they always had it at the concession stand
down
at
there.
baseball games, and my older brother was playing, and that's when I got introduced to the glory that was the walking taco. Now it's a staple in the Kraushaar household, and now it's a staple here.
It's our
for the
winter
Muskie Booster
kickoff
Club.
meal.
Yeah.
We wanted to do something a little bit different. And, people always ask out there if we have walking tacos, things like that. And we're like, hey, let's do that.
That's such a great idea.
Yeah, well, and it actually helped the softball concessions. Hy-Vee had some stuff left over, and part of what they had left over was a bunch of Doritos.
Perfect.
And they're the great bags that you tear open, not the stupid ones you have to have somebody cutting open.
Perfect.
And so, yeah, Hy-Vee did a good job giving us a good deal on those. And so here it goes.
Well, that's a great example of how our booster club is not just a lot of committed parents and volunteers, but there's a lot of resourceful people, and we have a wonderful community that
Yes.
supports it. And that's something that you know firsthand of how you couldn't do what you do without the community support.
Oh my gosh, no. And that's one of the things that, when I took over as president this year, I said that was going to be one of my major focuses, was thanking the people who volunteer. So super cheesy with all my pictures. Everybody will tell you that. They're all over everywhere. But one of my biggest things is making sure that we get it out on social media. Thank you. Tonight we took a picture. Thank you, softball. Thank you to all the groups that help us. Thank you to the people that support us. It's been just one of my major focuses, is to make sure that we highlight how we get that help, how we are able to provide those finances to all the different organizations, and that's parent help.
And that's a great point too, that it's different organizations. Yes, we're at the winter sports kickoff here tonight, but the Booster Club is so much more than an athletics booster club.
Absolutely.
You're helping the speech and debate and forensic teams. The
Student council, Key Club, you name it.
I wanted to say that Tom Olsis, the activities director here at Muscatine, said there are over 100 student clubs and activities
Yeah.
for students to be involved, and all of those benefit from the Booster Club.
They do. Yep. Anybody that comes to us. We have a budgeted amount because there's just people who know they're going to need a certain amount each year. And then, we have people who come to us and say, hey, we have this need, or we have this additional need. For instance, the POM group, they added some kids this year. And so they needed some extra uniforms. And so they came to us and said, hey, what can we do? Can you provide a little bit more? And so, we dug deep in our budget and said, hey, we will, but will you come help us do one extra concession?
Yeah.
This year, pro wrestling, they only have one home event, which is awful, but there were more home football games this year. There's more home basketball games this year. So that means we need more groups to help cover concessions.
Absolutely.
So some groups that last year only had to cover once have to cover twice. We actually brought the concessions back in the Y program, the Y swimming program. Getting parents to volunteer these days is hard.
Right.
We're all so busy, we all have so much, and I think there's just kind of this general mentality, somebody will do it. Well, that somebody is us,
Yeah.
And so we brought that back in-house from the Y program, and they were okay with it. They're like, one less
Yeah,
thing our
I'm
parents
actually
have
a
to volunteer
parent
for.
in the Y program.
Yeah, so you know how it
Yeah,
works.
oh, absolutely.
It's not an option,
No,
man.
no,
You
it's
either
hard.
pay or you volunteer for
Yeah.
4 hours, period.
Yeah.
So they were like, hey, 3 less concession spots, perfect. But that meant we had 4 extra concessions, things
Right.
that we were doing. So you know what, POM stepped up and they said, sure, well, we'll help. We'll do an extra one. So.
And it really is an example how the community is always kind of, it's in balance. When the volunteerism is there, it keeps everything balanced, and it allows that Booster Club to do what it needs to do.
Yeah.
And you mentioned there is a budget, there is money. I know it's significant. I think my parents were involved when I was in high school, and I know that one of the biggest events of the year is the cake auction coming up
absolutely.
on January 24th.
Yes.
And-
Board game night.
That's the theme?
That's the theme.
Awesome.
I know. We're gonna have Monopoly stuff going.
We've got to figure out something that Brian and I can do on the air.
Okay.
That
What do you
is-
want to do?
I don't know, with board game theme. We can do I got it, because it'll make me look smart, and Brian will probably look smart too. We got to do Trivial Pursuit or something.
Oh yes.
We could do that.
I
That's something
like it.
easily we can integrate. My wife
Perfect.
just cringed. She hates trivia. I'm a fan.
Oh well,
So,
that's okay.
I can do
support
it.
you.
We'll
I
do
support your thought process.
Brian, I just volunteered us. We're gonna.
Voluntold. I feel like it was more like voluntold, but whatever. We're actually going to do a Monopoly theme. The Booster Club is. So what we're doing, I'm actually going to be hitting up small businesses. So be prepared. Megan's going to come knocking. We're going to hit up small businesses. There's going to be 8 small businesses. Each one is going to have a Monopoly piece.
Well,
and you have to make a purchase at that, wherever that's going to be at, and then $1 donation to the Booster Club, and you get your piece. And if you collect all the pieces and bring them to cake auction nights, you get entered into a drawing for $250.
Well, and the way they always have the cakes set up in the cafeteria, that actually, if you look at it from the top, it's almost like a Monopoly board.
That's exactly
So
what it is. So we're going to have a do not pass.
Yes.
Go directly past go. Go directly to jail. Absolutely.
That's great.
I'm kind of thinking about we should have a black and white shirts that,
Like checkerboard?
Go to jail.
Oh, there you go.
Or like an orange jumpsuit, and you have to pay to get out of jail. Like you get to put it on your friends. Yeah, like Crush Hour says, I'm going to pay $20 to put it on Tony Tone. Then Tony Tone says, I have to pay $20 to get it off and put it on somebody else.
That could end up dangerous.
I know.
I'll have games I have to call, so I have to make sure that my friends keep me out of jail.
No, they're just gonna keep paying to keep it on you. Let's be honest.
It's gonna be that could be
and
bad.
Then
that could be great for the school, but it could be bad for me.
Yes, let's try. So Ty last year, Pastor Ty from Calvary, he has got a wingspan that is just crazy, right?
Yeah.
And so last year I was selling 50/50s for $20. You get a wingspan, and you get to pick whose wingspan.
So he was just
hundreds of dollars. He couldn't move. Yep, hundreds of dollars were spent on his wingspan.
There's some other wingspans out there too that we could probably go.
Jeff Oathmer had a few. I think Diekman had a couple.
Gotta get a splinter. Jeff Miller, our facilities director here at Muscatine.
The wingspan. Yep.
He's got a nice long one there too.
There you go. But I need the $20 from the people to buy the raffle tickets.
I am. Cake auction night is. Going back from my childhood is one of my favorite events, and it's such a well-run thing, and it's grown and grown and grown.
Yes.
But I have to tell you, I have friends from college who came back and visited with me one time when we were in school. They're from Northwest Iowa, had never seen anything like it. My wife's in the same category. They're like, what is this?
What is this?
This is such a juggernaut event. And they were just, and one of them is an activities director now in Sioux City, Iowa.
Did they start a cake auction?
Yeah, they stole the cake auction, so they do it. And he gives us credit. Don't worry.
Perfect.
He tells everybody it was from his friend.
So you say it's from your childhood. Mine too. There is actually, so we did here a few years ago a way back when theme. I think it was probably 5 or 6 years ago. And I went through my old memorabilia things that my mom kept for me. There was a picture on the front page of the journal of me and my friend Megan Black, and we were carrying a cake.
Megan's brother Doug was in my brother's class.
Okay, so Megan and I were carrying a cake. We were actually carrying the varsity basketball cake because we were sophomores then, and did like the whole live auction.
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
I like holy Moses, and now I'm helping with the cake auction.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I've got the 20-year reunion coming up here next.
I'm not going to tell you what mine is. Let's just not talk about it.
I just did the math in my head.
Yeah, let's just move on.
So, but I'm not gonna say it again. Megan Kaufman Randall here with the Muscatine Booster Club. What are some other? If someone's listening to this and they're wanting to know how they can get involved with the Booster Club, what's the best way to do that?
So we're all over social media. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. MHSMuskyBoosters@gmail.com. They can email us, and we need volunteers. You don't have to have a kid in the program to volunteer for us. A lot of times will just put a message out on my Facebook and say, I need help, friends. I would say if they were listening, the biggest thing is if you have a kid in an activity, volunteer.
Absolutely.
Tom has actually, our new AD has made it so easy to sign up. On the MHS Muskie Boosters Facebook page, we always put the link to signing up for concessions. You would not believe how many people say, hey, if you ever need help, hit me up. We always need help.
Well, now you have a link you can just text them.
Look at that link, yes. Yeah. And they can just go in and they can sign up. It's great. It reminds them. It sends them a text and an email. Your volunteer time is coming up. It's fantastic.
It is just, that's great use of technology to just make everything simpler. And you mentioned...
We're giving Tom cred, just in case.
Absolutely.
Tom has done a lot of really good things.
We've been very fortunate the last several years to have activities directors, and Mike Morgan, who's now one of the school board members, and now Tom Olsis, who are committed to, let's figure out the way to make it easy for our families to stay involved. Because you mentioned you don't have to have a kid at the school. Maybe they've graduated, maybe they're not there yet. I have young children. But one thing that we all have to realize is no matter what school they go to now, Eventually, they're going to be a muskie. They're going to come through these halls.
We invited Next Level. We invited Little Muskie Girls Basketball because we're seeing this is going to be you next.
Absolutely.
Come get involved. Come see what you're going to be a part of. Come see who your heroes are going to be, who you're going to look up to. Absolutely.
It's really interesting for me, like watching. I have an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And a few years ago, Joe Wieskamp
Oh my gosh,
with
are you
everything.
sleeping yet?
Oh yeah. And I can't. I'm not ever gonna make it sound like parenting is hard. I have the most amazing wife who does everything for us. She's the rock.
Shout out.
But I bring, my kids. They watch a Hawkeye basketball game. There's Joe. Like Joe is their hero. And I said to my wife, I'm like, I was that kid watching Steve, Joe's dad, and Brett Olson.
Yeah.
So there is a real generational thing here with that.
See,
with
Emily
these
Cummins
kids.
is back coaching.
Yeah.
Emily Wieskamp now.
Yeah,
Emily
absolutely.
Wieskamp. She's back coaching. How awesome is that?
Well, and we see it in all of our sports. We have new people move in, and I think that's just, we have great new blood as well, not just people who are from Muscatine who have moved through.
Yeah.
And that's so important. I'm not married to a Muscatine person, so I get that's interesting that you guys do it that way.
Yeah,
so it's a wonderful thing, and our booster club is kind of the root of how everything goes, and we're able to move forward with it. And who are some other members of your booster club team? You're the president. Who are some other aspects?
I was going to say,
treasurer's a huge job.
Yeah. So Melinda Leonard is our treasurer. And then we have Vanessa Rangel and Trisha Freers. And they're on our board. And definitely have to give a shout out to Jamie Cook and Bridget Estrada. They both help tremendously. They're always volunteering. They didn't get voted onto the board, but they're there. They're always there. They're always helping. They're just those extra people. Tonight they were here. You can count on them. Yeah. And so, that's my group.
That's great to have a team like that. And again, January 24th is the cake auction.
Yes, cake auction.
But there are lots of other opportunities. Remember, if you're coming to a game and you're like, oh, my kid's thirsty or I'm thirsty, go to the concession stand.
Go to the concession stand. Don't bring it with you.
That money goes back into these programs. And again, it's not just the sports programs. I know Renee Mock just announced Into the Woods is going to be the musical this year at the high school.
Yep.
So they're a benefactor of the Booster Club.
Yeah.
They just finished their fall play. Show Choir has their big invitational coming up. Yeah. There's all sorts of opportunities that this organization is helping the kids. And I always say this on the air, and I'm sure Brian is tired of me getting on the soapbox. But
Jump on it.
But the reason I get excited about it is because there's this myth that kids don't do things anymore, that they're always on their phones, and they're not paying attention to the world. That's not true. You walk through these hallways, there's more kids here at 6 a.m. than maybe half of me and my coworkers aren't even out of bed yet.
My daughter's one of them.
There's kids here working out. They're
Yep.
lifting, they're running, they're studying. They're doing what they need to do.
Show choir.
It's nuts. That was something I did.
My daughter had to decide between lifting and show choir on Friday mornings. And then has to make up for lifting because it's actually your early bird class.
Right, and it's one of those things that there's so much buzz. I don't live far from here. There's so much activity, and the Booster Club helps keep those activities moving forward.
So we're a 501c3. We're a not-for-profit program. So it's a zero balance budget. We want to give it all away. And so
100%.
give us anything. Give us your time, give us your money, because we're gonna give it back, right back to the kids.
Yeah, and I remember interviewing Aaron Eversmeyer a few years ago when he was the president of the Booster Club. About $100,000 was the operating budget, and I'm sure that has grown.
It actually shrunk a little bit.
Wow.
It was unfortunate. So we only had 3 home football games last year.
Right.
And we had less basketball games. Quite frankly, we had less participation at concessions. And we had a little bit less participation in the cake auction last year. So drumming up business, the more participation we have, the more people that come, to concessions, support those concessions, the more people that donate a cake or come buy a cake. Either way, that's how we get that budget. And this year, it's almost 80,000, so a little bit less, but still huge amount. And we've grown that a little bit. We had a great donation from the class of 1964, and so we were able to give student council a little bit of extra money too. So when it comes in, we're finding ways to send it back out.
Yeah, it's cliche, but there really is no better investment than putting it back into the kids and back into the schools. And we're excited. Again, cake auction, January 24th.
January 24th.
It's on our calendar. Board game. I did not know the theme. I'm excited about the theme. Huge board game
So we had to advertise this first.
What's your favorite board game?
Oh gosh, my favorite Monopoly. But you know why?
Have you ever had?
No, you have to know why I love Monopoly.
Okay, I'm curious.
My dad's a cheater. And he always beat us.
See,
And so, like, I just really want to win at Monopoly.
So I don't know that I've ever finished a game of Monopoly, and here's why. I don't know that, like, I call it the game that just destroys friendships.
Yes.
Like, I don't think that there's any. No
What
one
did I
knows.
just call my own father?
Yeah, a
I'm
cheater.
Daddy's little
Yes,
girl. I
yeah,
called him a cheater.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's just people cheat, which I guess it's a great tool, I guess, to prepare you for life. The game of Monopoly. So,
Yeah. Yep.
all right. Well.
Oh, so Kylie wants to come in and be here. This is my daughter, Kylie.
Absolutely. Again,
Hi.
great example of why we're all
This
here.
is why we do it.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
So it's fun to see these kids all get involved and stay involved. And
Active kids, healthier kids, happier kids. They do better in school. I mean, there's so many studies out
Yep,
here. The
absolutely.
more active we keep them, the better off they're going to be.
yeah, and that's why it's important to have the Booster Club to keep those programs moving forward. Board game night, excited about that. Anything
Yes.
else that we can need to be prepared for?
Just come support these kids. Come support the cheerleaders. Come support the pom girls. Go support the show choir. Go support the band competitions. There's a jazz band festival coming up. You know, anything that you do to
We've
support
got that
our
rock
kids.
orchestra, the
Yes.
different orchestras around. I
Yep.
mean, that's
Get
such
out
a,
there.
Yeah, get out there.
Get on the school website for the calendar, and if you're bored, there's always something you can do that supports these kids.
And we all have these phones in
I
our
know,
hand.
isn't it?
You get the Our School app,
Yes.
which links to the district calendar. I use it every single
day.
day because
What
it
is my
tells me,
life
oh
gonna
shoot,
look
I have a
like today?"
basketball game that I have to be at tonight.
Yep.
Or hey, there's a wrestling practice.
Yes.
It's got the choir. It's got all of the things in here. Iowa All-State going on right now. So the music department is all in Ames with these students who are doing a lot of
That's
great
why
work.
the band couldn't be
Yeah.
here tonight.
Yeah.
Terrible timing on our part, you know.
Yeah, you
Because
know.
the band is always super exciting when
Yeah.
the competitions are going.
But
they'll be
they have
here.
like 9 or 10 music students who are,
I know,
you know, and one
they
of the
did a fan-
second
okay, but
oldest
Jeff Hines
music.
does such a great
yeah.
job with them.
It's the second oldest music festival in the United States. Is the Iowa All-State.
Isn't that
Flex.
awesome?
I was a music.
Flex.
I was a music
Were you-
education
were you
major
a
in high in
music
college.
guy?
Yes, absolutely.
There you go.
Appreciate you, Megan. Thank you so
Thanks.
much for coming. Again, we've ended this on a high note. We've got a lot of great things going on at the school
Yes.
and the Booster Club, such an integral
Great
part of
kids.
it. Again, cake auction, January
auction.
24th. I'm
Cake
going to say that in my sleep. Cake
are
auction.
you going to get your trivia?
January
Oh,
24th.
wait, is it going to be regular Trivial Pursuit, like Elevated,
I-
Disney?
I
Like,
don't
what
know.
are we doing with this?
I would kill Disney. I've got 3 little kids.
Would you sing? Can you make a karaoke? Like the 10th category is karaoke.
Although I think my daughter said to me the other night, she was talking to her friends at school and she said, none of my friends' dads know the songs from Frozen. I'm like, yep, but I'm
There's
not like,
the guy with
I'm
the
not like-
wingspan. Ty, we
yes.
were just talking about you.
I'm not like your friends' dads. I know all the songs
I know
from
all
Frozen.
the songs. I can sing.
Frozen 2, have you
Let's
seen
let
it?
it
Comes
go.
out.
No.
Yeah, let's not.
No.
We can do a duet. Cake auction night. Should we set a
Wait,
dollar amount?
I'm a big Little Mermaid fan.
Hey,
Let's do it.
les poissons. We'll do it. We raise
This is
enough
happening.
money, Megan and I will sing. There it is. We'll put a dollar amount out.
50-50 drawing. If it reaches $1,000,
We'll sing.
we'll sing.
We'll sing.
Done. I can't even believe I just
We
agreed
just
to
committed
that.
to
I'm
that.
a terrible singer.
$1,000 from the 50-50 raffle. Megan and I will sing. It's gospel truth now.
There you go.
If we get to 2,000, Tony Tone will join us.
Yes, I'm terrified somebody's just going to throw down some cash right now. But anyway.
All right, Megan, thanks so much.
Thank
We
you.
better get off the air. We'll do something stupid.
All
right,
right.
here we go. Thank you very much. Discover Muscatine, the Winter Sports Kickoff Booster Club. We're ready to go. Again, Megan Kaufman, Randall, thank you so much. Volunteer, everybody.
Volunteer. Go Muskies.